Take 4. Hi, knitters. Welcome to PJKnits. My name is Penny, and I live in Central Illinois, and I am a knitter, a blogger, and a YouTube podcaster, and we're going to carry on. It is Thursday, October 10th, and in Central Illinois, it's time for a weather report. It is fall. The leaves are not really turning a whole bunch yet, but I anticipate they will be shortly. After it rains today, it is supposed to be in the 50s for the next week or so, foreseeable future. So I think we can call it fall here. And you know what happens when fall comes around? It's time to knit some sweaters. And I am going to, over the last week or so, I kind of rethought about where I wanted to go with the podcast and talking about sweaters. Because originally I thought, oh, let's knit a sweater together. But I come to the realization as well that just because I like a certain style of sweater or a technique, that maybe not everybody wants to knit along. I understand that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to explore some different techniques from designers that have created ways of knitting sweaters, way of fit. I'm going to talk about a bit about those during the podcast over the next few months. I'm actually going to start with a particular method, and I'm hoping that you will follow along as I knit this. But if you choose not to knit along, that's fine. But if you just want to tune in and see how it's going, and maybe learn a different technique, that's great. I'm also going to explore other designers, and there are sweaters out there that I have just lists and lists of sweaters that I want to knit. And some of them are trendy, some of them are not, some of them are classics, some of them are basics. And I want to do those. I want to knit on those, and I want to see the style. So I'm going to talk a little bit about style, specific maybe to me and my age range, of what I should and shouldn't knit. And I'm going to give you some tools, some links, places that I have discovered along the way about sweaters, about fit, about ease, just about techniques in general. So I hope you will follow along and give us comments in the Ravelry group, which is PJKnits. Let's talk about sweaters, and let's talk about different designers that you like. Post your pictures. I'd love to see those, and let's talk sweaters for the next few months. So just to start off, in my little handy dandy book of one of my journals that I keep, I just want to start off with a little comment, and I apologize because I do not know where this comment came from. It's just one that I picked up, and I like this. It says, if you already knit, you can knit a sweater. There are no new skills. You knit, you purl. And so, armed with that kind of saying today, I am just going to proceed with my knitting, because I do believe that anybody can knit a sweater. Now, if you're a beginning sweater knitter, a child's sweater is perfectly fine to start with, because I think you get a lot of the new techniques, the things that, I don't want to say techniques, so I've just debunked that. There's no new things to learn. You're knitting and you're purling. There's decreases, there's increases, yes, but that's all the evolution of knitting, I think. And so anybody can knit a sweater. You don't have to stay with other things. Now, do I like to knit other things? Yes, you know from the last summer, I love shawls. I love knitting them. There's not a whole lot of fit to them, which is nice, and there's options all over the place of ones you can do and styles. But when it gets cold and I'm heading out on a fall day like today, I want a sweater, or tomorrow, which is casual day, and in the 50s, I want to wear my ranunculus. I want to put it on and wear it. So yes, anybody, I believe, can knit a sweater. And if you don't think you can and you need help, reach out. We will help you through the process. So we're going to start, first of all, with what I'm wearing. Today is ranunculus. Finished it finally. And I want to tell you something that I have learned, and this is me, always evolving and having some sort of epiphany when it comes to my knitting. But when I knit my party top, we talked about that. That was a crop sweater, and I lengthened that one a little bit because I was on the cusp. Well, the hot trend now is all the crop sweaters. Guys, I discovered on Ranunculus that when I did the 3 inches of twisted rib at the bottom, and it was a crop sweater, and I put it on, I looked in the mirror and I said, Penny, you're not 26, you're going to be 62. So I ripped that out. A crop sweater is not me. It is not for my, it may be for you at 62, that is fine, but it's not for my body style, and it's not something that I am comfortable in. So I ripped that 3 inches away and added length to it and the 3 inches rib, and now I have a 22, 23 inch length, and I am happy with it, very happy with it. So I am loving it. It has some halo to it. It was knit with a strand of Madeline Tosh Light that I'd had in my stash forever, and a strand of Nice and Knit mohair, which I love their mohair. I'm a fan of it, and I will be getting more of it. And so this is Ranunculus, and I'm pleased with the fit and everything about it. It had an interesting neck cast on, and I was a little dubious about when I was doing it whether that would fit. But I love, for me, I love where it sits on my neck. It's just right. So I will be using, down the road, I will be using this technique again when I start some top-down sweaters down for other things, because I really like, this is perfect. A perfect fit around the neck for me, so, and a perfect cast on. So I'm not giving a whole lot away with the pattern, but go out and check that out, Ranunculus, and feel free to lengthen, or if you can wear crops, do it. You know, it's all about what you want to wear, what you look good, and what you feel good in. And in my case, this lengthen was the way I wanted to go. So that said, I want to talk. I'm going to put out in both the Ravelry group, and I do show notes on my blog, www.pjknits.blogspot.com. I put show notes both places, and I'm going to put some links on some, just some informational things. And these are both from Brooklyn Tweed. And the first one is selecting a sweater size. And I encourage you all to go out and check this out. And again, I will put links in the show notes both places on PJ Knits, the Ravelry group, and out on my blog as well. So there is great information about choosing the correct size to knit from a pattern. He talks about that. And this is something that resonated with me. And in the last couple years, I talked about sweaters and about questions and answers that you should ask yourself before embarking on a sweater. And maybe some of it came from Brooklyn Tweed. That could very well be. But I put out some questions. I will also post the episodes that you can find those questions where I talked about it, and some of the links to my blog and to other places that I talk about deciding on what sweater size you want to wear, you want to knit, and the sweater style you want to knit. Some questions to ask, you know, what looks good on you, which is I am constantly looking at. And I look to friends who say, ooh, that looks a little short when you're knitting that. And so you can tell by their tone as well, and I love their opinions, that perhaps that you ought to rethink that, Penny, and I do quite often. But anyways, this was most informational, and it's like, what do you gravitate toward? Do you like a raglan sleeve? Or do you like a yoke? Do you like a set-in sleeve? I know that a drop shoulder for me from years ago when I took a seminar with Judy Chan, I finally realized that a drop yoke was not for me. I am too wide to carry off that look here. So there are ways, and we'll talk about those down the road, ways to take those, drop sleeve, to take those drop sleeves and bring them back up, even in a style of sweater, even in a design pattern, for most cases. So we're going to talk about that as I knit up to my sleeve as well, and we'll talk about those options. But one of the thing is that you will you'll want to know, you know, what looks good on you. What's in your wardrobe? What do you like? What do you have there that looks good? And then selecting the size. I cannot say enough about getting somebody or taking accurate measurements of your body. And Amy Herzog, I believe, did this really well. I am going to link also in the show notes to a blog post that I did years ago where I had my son take pictures of me. And I was in a form-fitting tank top. And that's how we took the measurements. And I was very open about what I looked like and what measurements I wanted him to take, because key to any sweater fit, guys, is to make sure that you're taking proper measurements. Now, if you have a sweater in your wardrobe that you love, and I did at the time, I had a sweatshirt that I wore the death out, ready-made, and I said, this is how I want a sweater to fit. Laid it down, measured it, and those are the measurements I went with my next sweater. I knit it to fit, much like we've talked about before, and other designers and other podcasters have talked about. So one of the things is very important that you get a fit that you like. And we're going to talk more about that over the coming weeks. But I will give you some resources in the show notes so that you can go and maybe noodle on that a bit and find something that you, and make sure that you are getting some good measurements and how to take them. The other thing I will link to is also from Brooklyn Tweeds, and this is calculating ease, bust, and chest. He has some worksheets that I will link to that out there so that you go out and check that, because I think ease is very important. Right now, the trend for this one and a lot of sweaters that I want to knit that are on trend and fashion sweaters from designers right now have a tremendous amount of ease. And I'm honest with you all. I have a body shape that I don't need any more ease. I don't need to be I don't need to grow any more than I already am. I like a sweater that fits well. I want you to see the body shape. I want you to see that I have a smaller waist, and I want it to cover places that I want it to cover. That is me, and totally knitter's choice, wearer's choice. But I just don't want 6 to 10 inches of ease. That's just not me. So I'm going to make those, and because I am a knitter, because I take those measurements and I know what I really like, I know what looks good on me, I know the styles that I have in my wardrobe that I say that I love, like that sweatshirt, it was red. I know that I can use those measurements to take and make a sweater that works. So anyway, I will put those resources out there for you, and I hope you will check them out. Now, one of the things that is so very important, and not everybody does this, and I know, I have some friends, Linda, I know gauge lies. Important thing with gauge, I believe, and again, this is my issue, my thoughts. Totally, you can do what you want to. But I always make a gauge swatch, and I will tell you that sometimes they are a little smaller than they should. One I just did was smaller than I should, but I'm anxious to get started on it. But for the purpose of the sweater that I'm going to be knitting with you over the next couple of weeks, oh, let's just face it, the next month. Anyway, maybe longer. But I made a gauge swatch. Now, my gauge swatches are not always this big, but because I'm doing the 40 months, 40 wrap project for work, I thought, why not make my gauge swatch into a cowl? And then I'll have a large one. So this, and I've talked about this before, this is my gauge swatch for the sweater that I'm going to be knitting right now. It is a cowl, a version of the Pearl Ridge, just a little bit differently, okay? I knit it on the needle that I thought that I want my sweater to be knit out of. I blocked it. I let it dry. And so now I have a perfect size gauge swatch and a 40 wrap done. Okay? So, most important to get the proper gauge swatch. That is for me. Now, with that said, as I knit this sweater, I am periodically going to check my unblocked gauge measurement. I'm going to see what it's like, if it's changing, or if I think that as I go from the bottom up, then I need to go in a little bit. I may go down a needle size. But I'm going to check that gauge down the road and see how off I am. And when I do a gauge swatch, I take the measurements and get my gauge before blocking and after blocking, and I write them down in my journal. As I've talked about that before, I write it down in my journal, the before blocking and then after. So as I knit along, then I can check my gauge periodically, what it is unblocked, and say, oh, at this point, I'm getting larger a gauge. Maybe I should switch up that needle in anticipation. Now, I know that as well, depending on your mood, your gauge swatch could, your sweater itself could change. You could be very stressed, very frustrated, or very loose after a couple glasses of wine. So it could change a little bit. I'm okay with that. I know that what happens with gauge is can change a bit. I also know that by not doing a gauge swatch, certain increments can change the length or the width of a sweater by your gauge. So that's why I'm always constantly, every 6 inches or so, checking my gauge, making sure. So just want to put that out there. Again, like all things I say, if this isn't something you want to do, don't do it. If you get good results, a lot of people say, I get perfect gauge all the time, so I don't have to do that. Then you go for it. Whatever works for you, I encourage you to do. I'm just telling you what I do. So anyway, what I want to talk about then and is the yarn that I am using. And I want to, this is Briar Rose, and it's 4th of July. And you know what I love about Chris's yarn is this is 100% merino. There's 550 yards in this. So I really do like her yarn, and I have some, and she is a friend from Knitting Camp, and we keep tabs. And she does a lot of festivals. So if you're out and about Rhinebeck or Michigan or Wisconsin, Sheep and Wool, all of those places, check out Briar Rose Fibers. Chris is a lovely lady, and she is at all the festivals, also has an online presence. So anyway, that's the yarn that I'm using. Now, what sweater am I gonna knit? Well, I'm gonna tell you that, and I talked about this before, excuse me, that I am a fan of Elizabeth Zimmerman. I have been a fan of Elizabeth's since my kids were in preschool, which is like 30 years ago, when I first found her on PBS. Did not have a clue to where my life would go afterwards in the whole getting to meet Meg and attend knitting camps. I never imagined back then that I would be doing that, or that she and Meg would become such an important part of my knitting life. So what I'm going to talk about in the next month or so, 6 weeks, 8 weeks probably, is a lot of Elizabeth Zimmerman, because I truly believe that she hit on something for me. And one of my first camps, after I heard about EPS, Elizabeth's percentage system, really heard about it from Meg in person, I went back to our room, and I was rooming with my friend Julie at the time, and I said, Julie, I just had an epiphany. I truly can knit any sweater to fit me using EPS. Now, it was mind-blowing. And so what I'm going to do for this podcast for the next few weeks is I am going to knit an EPS sweater from scratch, from the get-go. I have incorporated a lot of their techniques, mostly Meg's and Easy, of course, into sweaters that I have knit at different places. I have knit a couple of sweaters. The saddle shoulder sweater, it was the Brooks sweater out of one of the books. I did that several years ago. But this one, I thought I truly want a sweater that is a throw on and go for fall. Something you can sit around at night. I do a lot of knitting on the porch, or I can head out to knitting on a Saturday and be warm in Panera when they have the air going. pull it off when I don't need it, wear it into work on casual day, take it off when I don't need it. So I'm going to knit an EPS sweater. Now, I highly encourage you to go out and check out one of the many books that are available that talks about EPS. I am going to talk about it, but I'm not going to go, and I will tell you as I knit along and show you some things. But this is EPS, this is Elizabeth's percentage system, and as all things, I encourage you to go out and buy a book from Schoolhouse Press or wherever you do to get the true method and to get all of the information that is in those books by these wonderful ladies. The first one you can talk about, you can find it in the Opinionated Knitter. There, this is a lovely book, and I'm not quite sure what my version's going to be as I work up towards the top, but here are some possibles. And in the book, EPS had a certain style of EPS back in the day when she first put it out there. And since then, Meg and Schoolhouse Press have switched it up a little bit and added some different pieces to it. They have updated the system a little bit, let's say. But you can find the information out there in the Opinionated Knitter. And another book that that has been revamped. I have the original red book, and the last couple of years they have redone it and added some things to it. I encourage you to get Knitting Workshop. This one is lots of cool designs in it and works you through from the beginning. A hat and color work, get engaged. It's just, I think this one is a no-brainer, guys, on a book to get and have. And what I want to do after I get done with my sweater is I want to start out at the beginning, the Knitting Workshop. And I thought it would be fun, you know, to blog about it, my foray into Knitting Workshop. And so if any of you want to get a hold of the book and after I get going on my sweater, if you want to join me in that, I think that would be just a hoot and a lot of fun to do. And there are a lot of different designs in here and things to take you to. And I just think it's time to work through the Knitting Workshop. So you can find, again, there is the drop and the yoke. You can find that in the book as well. And the other things in here, let's see. Some possibilities down the road. So this is Knitting Workshop. I just think this is a fantastic book. I loved it. My first edition I love, and I put notes in it, and I've knit some things out of it. I loved it. It was black and white, and it was, you know, Elizabeth. And so this one has the updated and has color pictures. And I just think, guys, oh, look at this. And a lot of information in it for knitting on sweaters. I encourage you that. So I'm going to tell you, again, we'll talk about EPS, but I really want I want to give credit to them, and I don't want to take anything away from them. So go out and buy the books from Schoolhouse Press, and I will link that in the show notes. Now, I will tell you, if you Google EPS, you will get some more information as well. Back in winter of 2004, Knitty, the online magazine, did an article on knit by numbers. So you can check it out there. Knit Picks did a little tutorial on the percentage system. You can find that out there. And so those are some options for you to go out and check out. But again, you know, I like a book, guys, and I like to encourage people to buy the books, and that's what I'm going to say. Now I'll step down off of that particular soapbox. So what I have done so far on mine is I have taken my measurements and I have cast on, and my sweater as to be determined as to which one it's going to be from EPS, and I have cast on with my rib. And what I have done is to cast on to start with, 90% of my knit measurement of where I want my finished measurement to be. And so I have cast that on in the yarn, and now it's just a simple, for me, a knit one, purl one as I motor on up to the next stage. But the key here is to take the measurement of where you want the sweater to be up here, and that is knit that your number that you want to go towards, and then to cast on 90% or 10% less for your rib, and that is what I have done. Now, funny thing about this is I am wanting to knit the no frills sweater from PJKnits. That's my next cast on that I want to do in conjunction with that. And I'm going to tell you backwards here, I'll tell you a couple of things. This is the yarn I have chosen, Homespun House. And this colorway is it's the Cashmere Merino Fingering. It's her Sugared Sweeties is the color. And I'm going to hold it with a skein of her mohair in fresh sheets, sorry. So those are the two that I'm going to do, okay? And I have done a swatch, and one of the things that you will learn out there, and I learned from Meg, is how to do, because this is in the round, how to do a circular swatch. And so I followed the instructions, and I did a in the round swatch. And what happens with that is you take your needle, and instead of knitting in the round, knitting in the round, knitting in the round, you knit back and forth, much like I-cord. But, and I'm going to show this on the blog before, so if you try pjknits.blogspot.com, I'll show you the progression of this. But it's basically looks like that. And then when you're done, you just slide it back, you knit across, slide it back, leave a big loop behind your needle, which is how you get this little fringe that I've cut, and knit across and do the same thing. That way you get basically knitting in the round gauge without having to go in a big tube and use twice as much yarn. So I have done my gauge swatch for this. And with this PJKnits, this one has some ease to it. So I've done a lot of calculations. I do a lot of calculations and put the information on my knitting pattern because I love a paper pattern for that particular reason. What I discovered in reading the pattern on this one is that this is worked top down, and when you get down to the hem, she has you decrease 10%. And I'm sitting there last night and I'm like, hey, that's going to go down to 10% less. That is EPS, only it's coming from the top down. Super cool. So not only was EPS and Meg, Elizabeth, just an epiphany, guys. 2019, somebody else is still using this. So it is a tried and true method. And I'm just like, I was really blown away. So that is one of the sweaters that is upcoming. That's what I'm going to talk to you about right now is sweaters, because that I want to knit that aren't necessarily EPS but can be adapted. And I want to show you some things that are that I'm interested in looking at, and that you're going to be seeing some of them. So we're digressing, or we're transiting into other sweaters that are out there. This is how excited I am about sweaters. I want to knit all the things, and I just want to sit and knit, but I got to work for a while. But first of all, Espace Tricot, Melissa came out with last week a new pattern called Turtle Dove 2. And I made Turtle Dove, the first one, out a little bit heavier yarn. This is a free pattern from Espace Tricot, and I am going to knit that. And I ordered the yarn from Espace that it's actually knit out of. And I can't wait to try this out. This is a new one for me. This is a drops. It's called Air Mix, a medium thick blow yarn made of baby alpaca and merino wool. much like the wool folk that we used for the other one, but just a little bit finer. And so I'm just blown away. And the color, guys, the color, it's me. I'm so excited that I don't have to do like a brown or gray or whatever. Isn't that cool? So I'm so anxious I can't wait to start on this one too. Oh my gosh. And so then another one, a style that we're going to look at down the road too. This is called Friday and New from Anna Strick. This is contiguous, a contiguous sleeve. And I've had a couple of friends who have knit those. And so I'm kind of super excited to delve into that technique with you and talk about that as well with you. So that's a sweater that I want to knit. And then God and everybody has knit this, and I have the yarn for it. I'm excited about this one too. This one is from Andrea Mowry, The Weekender. Everybody's knit it but me. I'm a little bit slow to kick in, but I've done my gauge swatch. Went out last night on Ravelry. I cannot tell you how important, and this is again, getting back up on the soapbox, cannot tell you how much I appreciate people who actually post pictures of their bodies in sweaters on Ravelry, because it tells us so much about whether we want that length, whether we want to do more ease, more width to it, or whether it's just not for us, or it has a drop shoulder and we need to maybe switch that up. I can't say that enough, and I'm not the only one who said that. So it's not a new concept, but I really do appreciate those of you who put them on your bodies and let us see what it looks like. And no matter what, that way we can say, hey, she has the same body type that I have. Or, hey, she looks like she's the same age I am. Or, hey, she's 20 and she can carry that off, but I can't. It's a mind check, and so thank you, and step down. With that, I found out some good information, because I've heard a lot about the neckline on this of people maybe not liking how it hits. And I can say this is probably not a style that I necessarily want to as well. But I went out to the Ravelry patterns and looked at the projects and scrolled through to some comments and found some good comments as to how I can switch that up so that it is not so loose and hanging off. Because ideally, I would like to wear that over a turtleneck, yes, but it would be nice to throw on by itself as well. So again, I can't say enough about checking out the Ravelry. And then another one from Espace Tricot that came out gracious that I'm looking at seriously. I have yarn upstairs, maybe as a possibility for knitting as well. And then again, a good old standby for me is Heidi Kiermaier Mountain High. Again, I have yarn upstairs in my personal yarn shop that I can do for that. So as you can see, I have a lot of sweaters that I want to knit this season, and it's just so, when the cool weather comes, it just spurns you on, and it lights a fire under me to knit sweaters. And so I hope that you will want to knit some sweaters as well, and I hope that you will share them with us on Ravelry, in the Ravelry group. You can do it. I know you can, and it's a fun time to be a knitter right now. So I just have a couple of other things that are away from sweaters that I want to talk to you about. Most of these are going to be a new pattern and a book and some yarn. My friend Cheryl Hill just came out in the last couple of days with her first design, shawl design, and this is so cool, and I love it when it's somebody that I know. I met Cheryl years ago at knitting camp, and I see her every year at Stitches Midwest. She does a Minnesota Knitters Day every fall, and I'm planning on attending that next fall because she's going to have Janine Vegas there. I'm planning on going to that. And so Cheryl, and this is a pay for pattern that you can go out on Ravelry and get. And this is so super cool. It's called Block Island Knitwear Design, Block Island, and it's a Knitwear Design Collection 2019. So there's going to be more from Cheryl. She is a fabulous knitter. Check her out. She's Cheryl Knits, and you can't go wrong with this. But look at this pattern. Spring Leaves on Block Island. Cheryl last year took us, went out and took on Block Island some classes, and encouraged me as well to investigate the design class held every year out there. And so I may attend at some point in time. But guys, is that a super cool pattern? And because I know Cheryl is a super knitter, I can't wait to cast that one on as well. Oh my gosh, guys. So one of the things that I got myself into, thanks to Alicia and Annetta, is the O-Loops Harry Potter knit along. Yeah, like I needed, another knit along, another 3 months project, but I couldn't resist because I love Harry Potter. So to start with the project, you had to be sorted into a house, and to sort it into a house, you had to buy a skein of O-Loops yarn, which I did, and here's mine from O-Loops. This one is called Sprout Teaches Herbology, and so over the course of the next 2 months and a half, I will be participating in the Harry Potter knit along, and I'll talk more about the projects that I'm working on for that next time. But there is a group, O-Loops group, and that I'm participating in that, so we'll see how that goes. Lovely yarn. I've never used O-Loops before, so this is going to be really super fun, and probably is going to be some sort of cowl or a shawl, which is possible too. So anyway, and then lastly, in books and bags, just got this week, and I'm looking so much forward to reading the new book by Clara Parks, Adventures in American Wool. This is called Vanishing Fleece. And down the road, once I share it, I read it, I will share it with you viewers to send on, because I believe, books need to be shared. And I can't say enough again about hard copies, people. I love the feel of a book. Yeah, it's nice to have the e-version as well, but I do like a book. And this is Vanishing Fleece by Clara Parks. And so I'll talk about that more as I read that and go along. So those are the things that I wanted to share with you today. I, again, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. I can be found as Penny J on Ravelry. The Ravelry group is PJKnits. My blog is www.pjknits.blogspot.com. And on Instagram, which is where I am a lot of places, a lot of times for knitting and just bringing the knitting in and new ideas. I get most of my ideas right from there and from other podcasts. So I am PJ Knits there. So I hope that you'll follow me and you will subscribe here if you have not done so far. Tell your friends. I would appreciate that. I want to tell you about a podcast, Chevy Rell. I will link to that one as well. 3 days ago, she posted a video on YouTube of a cute sweater fashion show. Guys, check it out. And you got to be quick and maybe pause to see some possible sweater designs that people of all sizes were knitting and got up on YouTube, and let her video them. So Chevy Rell, check out her sweater fashion show that just uploaded about 3 days ago. You will love it. And then tune into Chevy Rell if that's a podcast you want to look at. Now, lastly, I just want to say that I will try to podcast next Wednesday in a weekish. That is my plan, real quick like. In a week from today, I'm going to have some surgery. It's I'll be out of commission from work for about 6 to 8 weeks. It's don't be worried. It's nothing. I'm calling it nothing big, but yes, it is a little bit of a major surgery, but it's not health compromising or anything like that. It's just something that I've been having that I should have had done. We've been talking about for 5 years to have done. And I'm finally having the procedures done. So I will be off work probably for at least 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. I won't be able to lift anything for a good 8 weeks, but I will be able to do a lot of knitting after I a little period of recovery and getting back to myself. So it may be a little difficult to do a podcast. I don't know how that's going to work. I know that I can't lift anything, so I won't be able to lift my big stool here, but maybe we can find other alternatives for that. So anyway, good thoughts in a week would be very much appreciated. And we'll keep in touch here on the Ravelry group and on Instagram. And guys, knit some sweaters. It's so much fun, and it's perfect weather here for it. And until next time, knit your sweaters with confidence and hope. Thanks for tuning in. See you later. Bye-bye. That's what's going to show up. That's what's going to show up. At the little thing on YouTube, that's what you're going to see. Ah! Oh well, that's live from Pekin, Illinois. Done. See you guys. Thanks.